Hello, and thank you for joining us today for Elevating Each Other. This podcast was born to elevate others in the community, business owners, nonprofit organizations, people in the community that are looking to make a difference. And we're located in Pueblo, Colorado, sunny Pueblo, Colorado. And today I am joined by Tammy Prutch, Program Director of CASA of Pueblo. And she's going to talk about why she does what she does and what CASA of Pueblo is. So, Tammy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Now, are you originally from Pueblo? Where are you from?
No, I'm actually a transplant from Southern California, sunny Southern California. I moved here 20 years ago. And my background is actually, I was widowed at a very young age and had returned to school to get my degree and ended up finding that I had a passion for assisting or wanting to assist children who had to go through the court system for abuse and neglect. And I didn't want them to travel that path alone. And so I ended up with a degree in sociology and an emphasis in sexual abuse and deviance, and met my current husband, who said, I'm retiring from the Navy and I want to move back to Colorado. I said, sure, let's go. So when I arrived in Colorado 20 years ago in Pueblo, I had two young girls. They were 10 years old, and I was looking for something to fill my time and give back to the community. And so I saw in the paper that there was an agency called CASA, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, and it was an opportunity to volunteer on behalf of children, giving them a voice in the court system and in the community and making sure that they were receiving everything they needed. So I thought, this is something that I can do with my time and still take care of my family. They were, young kids. They needed me still. So I volunteered from 2005 to about late 2007, and found that I really loved the work and recognized the importance that community members can bring to children in our community who are in need of a good role model or someone who can speak out on their behalf to make sure that they're protected and, as I said earlier, receiving what they need. And so I had, at that time, had reached out to my case supervisor and said, I really love this work. I believe in the mission of CASA, and I would like to go to work somewhere in human services, child welfare. And at that time, they were ready to hire a case supervisor. So I started on as a case supervisor in 2008 and never looked back. Through the years, I've held different positions within CASA. I was case supervisor for about 5 or 6 years. And at that time, I had approximately 20 volunteers that I was supervising and working with, and sometimes upwards of 75 children that those volunteers were supporting. And then I held another position of advocate donor relations manager, which is a little bit of community outreach, which I love. I love to bring our mission to community members and educate in the community about the work that we do. I think it's very important that our community understands that there are innocent children in our community who need assistance, and they can help. And it just takes a few hours a week, a month. So after that, our program director had retired, and I was promoted into her position. So now we have a staff of 5 case supervisors. We have a grants manager, an operations manager, office manager, and our executive director, Zane Grant. And so we've been growing over the years, and every year we serve more and more children. Last year we served 380 children last year in Pueblo County. Now we also have agencies out in Canyon City, which is the heart of Colorado, and then we have our La Junta program, and they're Arkansas Valley CASA. And we, as I said earlier, support them as well. So we did serve 380 children last year, but we also turned away a good number. Somewhere around 70 children went without an advocate. I hate to see that. I want every child who goes into the child welfare system and has an open what we call a dependency and neglect case, a DNN case. I want every child to have an advocate. So, oftentimes what I get asked is, how much time does it take? What is the role of a volunteer? What do they do? What is it once someone has decided that they want to learn more about becoming an advocate? There's a sit-down opportunity to share some of the information, and then we do a background screening. We do screen our volunteers very closely, and then they go through 37 hours of training. And it's a very extensive training. We cover everything from court process to child development to substance abuse, education, the needs of our adolescents. And they get sworn in. At the end of that training, they get sworn in as an officer of the court, and they are assigned their first case. Those cases can range from anything having to do with infants that are born drug exposed, to neglect cases, educational neglect for our adolescents who are going to be aging out of the system, potentially without any family connections. A lot of our children are in foster care, and a lot of our kids here in Pueblo live with extended kin and extended family. That's one of the most beautiful things, I think, about Pueblo, is that family ties run deep. So we strengthen and support those families. So our volunteers, what they spend their time doing is they go out to visit kiddos in their homes where they're placed, and they will get to know them, understand the circumstances of what's happening in their lives and in their cases, and what do they need? What does their family need? We get to visit with parents as well and see how we can support them. And we work alongside the Department of Human Services and the attorneys who are working on our recommendations and our reports to the judge so that he can make a well-informed decision about what's happening in the life of that child and what's going to be the best permanent solution. So our hope is that we are always working towards reunification with parents. And that's our number one goal, if that can happen in a manner that the child is going to be safe and thriving. But if that can't happen, is their family available? So the Department of Human Services will give their recommendations in their report. The judge has the final say as to what happens. Most of our volunteers find the work to be rewarding and enjoyable. But the cases can last right around a year, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit longer. It depends on how quickly families are moving through the process. So it's a commitment, but there's nothing else like it. To see a child go from a situation that maybe was unsafe, they weren't thriving in, to a home that is secure, safe, and they're thriving.
Right.
So, I kind of look at our cases broken into different subsections. We have our infant cases, which we call our infant to toddler program, and that's 0 to 5. And we have volunteers who really want to work with that very young age. They love the babies, they love the toddlers, they love to support grandparents and parents and what they need. And so there are some volunteers who just say, just let me have the babies. They love that. We have our elementary school age kiddos, and then we have our adolescents. And some of our volunteers really want to dig deep and work with adolescents, talk about what's going to be their future plans beyond life and child welfare. And our adolescents have different needs. Right now in our community, we have adolescents that are really struggling. They're struggling with school and truancy issues and placement issues. So the volunteers who want to work with older youth can't do it without them, because they become that pivotal person that youth can reach out to.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier that really sticks out in my mind is the number, 380. And that's 380 cases just in Pueblo County alone.
380 children.
380
And I
children.
believe it was 200 and some odd cases. So the cases can have a sibling group or a single child. It just depends on, the children in the family. But each case and each volunteer is assigned to all the children. Yeah, it's a large number.
It's a very large number. It's such extraordinarily important work that you do. CASA, for those out there that aren't familiar with CASA of Pueblo, it's been around about how long now, Tammy?
We're going to be
Pueblo?
celebrating our 25th year.
25 years of helping the community, 25 years of advocating for children. And it's a very heartfelt organization that just needs to be heard. The kids need to be heard. And what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you. Our
It's truly
volunteers,
amazing.
they're the heart of our program. So far in 2025, we've had 81 volunteers working on cases. They are, as I said, the heart of our program. We can't do this work without them. We have a very lean staff, and our role is to support our volunteers, to give them the education and to guide them in any way. So to see our community step forward to help the most innocent of members of our community it's really incredible to see. And I love that people continue to step forward to advocate on their behalf, because it does take time. And I call it heart work. It's because you need
Right.
to be willing to put yourself out there, learn something new, which, this is a big undertaking. I don't think many folks in our community really understand the depth of what it can be like for a child in the child welfare system, and our families in our community who are working really hard to make ends meet and take care of their kiddos. And sometimes it's a matter of giving them a hand up, as we're
Right.
talking about, elevate them,
Right.
help them reach their goals, give them the support, bringing the opportunity to share our mission and to talk about it is important.
Now, during your tenure with CASA, I'm sure there's some amazing success stories.
Oh, absolutely.
Are there any that you can share without divulging?
Yeah, I think that, in general terms, I think anytime we had a father a few years back who he wasn't connected with his child. He had been out of the picture, and mom was struggling with some substance abuse issues, and she wasn't able to care for their child at the time. But we were able to find him, bring him into the picture. He started a relationship with his child, became support for mom, and the child resided with him, but was still able to see his mother. And that's what we're hoping for. We want kiddos to be with their parents. And in this case, this child was able to reunite with a father he hadn't ever known. We've had very young mothers who were able to gain some education through the process and confidence that they could care for their young children. And those are the ones when they come in at the beginning of the case and they're very, maybe they're frustrated or they're, as I said, dealing with substance abuse issues. They're not focused. They may not have a permanent home to live in, and their child goes into care. They have the time to regroup, become employed, get housing, get stable, and their child is reunited with them. And to see them in court smiling at the end of a case and proud of what they've accomplished and that they can stand on their own 2 feet. It's beautiful, and there are times where there's some tears. Some of the cases where kiddos maybe cannot return home to their parents, and it ends up in a termination, which is hard to reach that point when it's adoption day, and these kiddos are adopted, will be cared for and loved as though they were one of their own. I remember a case, not a very large family, and all of the children had been adopted. They just all fell into it and loved one another and felt that they were part of the family. And it was a good thing to see that these kiddos were going to.
And obviously they've gone on to finish school in most cases and on to
Many of our
careers in
kiddos, I
college.
think one of the most rewarding things is when we have a youth reach back out to us and say, I just wanted to let my CASA volunteer know that the conversations that they had with me made an impact. Graduated, and I wanted to let them know.
Wow.
Or maybe they've started their own family, and they reach back out and say, just wanted to let my volunteer know that I'm doing well, and I have a child, and the conversations that we had they carried with me. So it's very special because we don't stay involved with the children after the case is closed. We want them to move on and thrive, and this was a hard period of time in their life, so they should move forward. I had the pleasure a few years back of connecting with one of my first cases, and it was quite accidental. One of our staff members was at her dental appointment and ran into this young woman, and when the gal heard where the coworker worked, she said, coworker was describing me. She goes, well, her name's Tammy. And this young mother was like, that was her name. So we were able to connect, and it's unusual. Like I said, it doesn't happen very often. But we talk frequently, and she has 2 young kids, and I get to visit her kiddos, and, I'm here for her. If she ever wants to just talk things out, we have gone lunch together, we have tea together. In fact, not too long ago, she called me just kind of randomly in the morning, a little alarmed. I was like, okay, what's happening? And she says, I'm going to be in the area. I wanted to bring you a cup, coffee. Can I bring you? And it was very, very sweet.
Wow,
So.
that's amazing. Just a great success story with being able to reconnect, and they recognize that and just have been able to move on and have a successful, fruitful life. Where otherwise, if it weren't for the organization and intervening and giving a voice to the kids going through the system, that story could be much different.
I think some of our kiddos need someone who is going to be in their corner and help them navigate what's going on around them, be their person. Our kids are not always willing or wanting to accept someone new in their life, but when our volunteers continue to show up, continue to be there despite maybe some struggles with behaviors. I remember one of our volunteers would go to the home. It was with a teenager. The teen was like, not really wanting to engage, and the volunteer would go every week at a specific time, and he would sit and read his book. And the teen was like, how much longer are you going to do this? The volunteer said, this is your time. I'm giving this time to you. However you want to spend it is how we'll spend it. So eventually this youth came around, and he's like, well, what do you want to talk about? And the volunteer said, whatever you want to talk about. And eventually there was rapport that was built, and the youth trusted the volunteer enough to be able to share their story and talk about some things that had happened to them, and maybe then they could plan about what this youth needed in order to heal and move forward. But it's investing time in kiddos that maybe have not had that in their lives previously.
So now, what are some of the things that CASA needs right now?
More than anything, CASA needs volunteers. And that is the hard facts there. Because, as I said, we're not able to serve on all of the cases. So I want to share that information with folks and have others share that out there in the community. Now, second to that would be, there's 2 opportunities to give back. 2 of the ones that would be on my mind at the moment would be school supplies. We want our kiddos to return to school with new clothing and backpacks. And, think back to when you were a kid. And more than likely, it was a big deal when you were going back to school, right? You got new kicks, you got, a backpack, and it was what you wanted, and you felt sense of pride in going back to school, and there was an excitement.
Right.
We want this for our kids too. So we do a school supply drive every summer, and then also at Christmas time. It's a big deal around our office during the holidays because when you think back to what we were talking about previously, many of the families in Pueblo, kinship placements where kids are placed, they were not prepared to be taking on more kids into their family. Could be two, could be one,
Right.
could be a sibling group. And that could be stressful financially. And so during the holidays, many businesses will contact us, and individuals too, contact us to say, how can I help a CASA family? So we make a list of all of our kiddos, and we have our volunteers talk with the family, children, and say, what is it that you need? What is it that you want? And when I have a business that contacts me, I say, here's the information. This kiddo is 10 years old. He's into Legos. Here's his clothing sizes. He really loves, superheroes, whatever it may be. Loves science. And then those businesses can fulfill that wish list. And then they bring it back to our office, and I have a team of people who come in and wrap. So we're talking thousands of gifts that get wrapped,
Wow.
and then our volunteers deliver those gifts. Now, for the kinship placement, we also do kind of like what's adopting a family, so to speak. And for those families who may need help with groceries or cleaning supplies or bedding, we'll include those types of staples in the bags that we give to the families. And that takes a little bit of the burden off grandparents, aunts, and uncles who are trying to make it stretch a little bit. We also are able to help other families in DHS who maybe are not a CASA family, or other agencies will reach out to me and ask for a little bit of assistance. And I'm happy that we're able to do that. It's a big undertaking, but it's very rewarding, and it's a joyful time around our office.
Yeah. That your CASA turns into Santa's
It
workshop
does.
at that point.
It really, really does. And then there's always funding. We always need money to keep our doors open, and all of the funding that we receive and donations that we receive stay within our program here in Pueblo County. It's for children and families in our community.
Very important. Yes, thank you very much for sharing that. And the same goes for the other CASA organizations. The monies and things that are given to that organization stay within that community. And that's wonderful. So now, how can people out there that listen to this podcast today and they're learning more about you and more about CASA and how important it is and impactful to the children in the community and adolescents, how would they go about contacting CASA to volunteer their time, or at least to get more information on how they can be helpful in the community and reach out? So what would they do?
They can call our office directly, and they'll get usually transferred to me. Our office number is 719-583-6326. They can go to our website and learn more about our agency, and that is casaofpueblo.org. And we're also on Facebook. Reach out to us there.
Okay, very nice. So hopefully everyone that's watching wants to learn more about CASA, wants to find out, how they can volunteer their time, or maybe they know someone that is semi-retired or, looking to fill their time and give back and be impactful in the fellow community. So now coming back, Tammy, I know we didn't talk too much about it at the very beginning because we wanted to really dive into CASA and how important it is to the community. But since coming to Colorado and especially Pueblo, what are some of the things that really drew you back here and some of the favorite things that you do here in the community?
So I've always been a coastal girl, right? I was born and raised on the West Coast. So it was a little bit of a culture shock when I moved to Colorado. Here I was in the center of the United States, but I've grown to love it. I love it. I love the mountains. I love to go hiking. I love photography, nature, anything I can do outdoors. Almost anything I can do outdoors, I'm game for. I'm thinking about, there's some extreme sports I'm like, no, I'm not good for that. But it's a beautiful state, and I love Pueblo, Colorado. I've come to love the community, truly, that we have here, because back in California, I didn't know my neighbors. I didn't know the resources. I didn't know what was out there. I was like, get in my car, go to work, come home.
Right.
But here in Pueblo, there's so much to do. And I just love it, and I
Yeah.
love our close-knit community. I live out in Pueblo West, and I can see the mountains every morning, and that's
Mhm.
something I couldn't do back in California.
True. Yeah, and I would have to agree with you on the community and how close-knit the community is. And yes, you do get to know your neighbor. We're all there for each other. We're trying to elevate each other. Tammy, I really appreciate you coming out and spending some time and explaining about CASA, helping other people learn a little bit about you and how they can reach out. Can you let them know once again how to contact you?
Sure. Our website is casaofpueblo.org, and our office number is 719-583-6326, and they can also always email me at Tammy, Tammy, at casaofpueblo.org.
Thank you so much, Tammy. For those that are out in the community that are listening to this podcast, please reach out. If you know anyone who wants to get involved or just learn more about the organization, such a wonderful organization, very important to the Pueblo community and to the kids of Pueblo. So my name is Freddie Martinez with Elevating Others. Want to give a big thank you to Anthony Burciaga of Everyday People Digital. He is the Jedi Master that puts all this together. So look him up. He's wonderful at what he does. So Tammy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Freddie, thank you, and thank you for what you do for our community.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.